Just start
I
it.
just started it. And look, I mean, you and I have just been chatting for, I don't know, what, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
About some real nuggets in here. And the whole time you're saying stuff and I'm asking you questions, I'm going, why have I not hit the recording button? So let's kind of dig into a little bit more what we were just talking about, which is sometimes we were talking about post-match clarity a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
And you know, for me, I played this guy Sunday, and you know, 30 minutes after the match, I'm going, bingo, duh, right? And yet during the match, just didn't quite have that clarity. And exchanged an email today with one of our subscribers, and I was just saying that, you know, against some guys, I can figure out, okay, we'll serve volley against this guy. It's just he's just knocking the return down at my feet, and I'm really having a tough time doing anything with that first volley or the first half volley or whatever it is, and I'm getting myself in trouble. So, all right, I'll go back and play more from the baseline. And yet there are other guys that you play against where the baseline thing is he's just flat out better than you are.
Right.
So that's like a gross, big picture kind of clarity. Like, all right, well, I can't do this against this guy, so I've got to be able to do something different. That's kind of the big picture. But within that big picture, Jeff, there's little tiny dials over here that you've got to sort of, you know, flip this little thing on and this little thing on and sort of tweak this and tweak that, because within the big strategy, either serve and volley or just stay back and kind of work from baseline, or even if you mix those two together a little bit, there's still little tiny minute things that you have to make changes on or be aware of. And for me, it's like the best players have not only the big picture clarity, but they have the little tiny minute clarity within that big picture. And that's one of the things that I'm still working on. And I think that I don't think I'm the lone ranger in sort of working or being able to be even deeper, have a deeper awareness or clarity of who's doing what to whom in the match. Right. So my question to you is, Mr. E, as in esoteric, as you mentioned this morning, it's Jeff, esoteric Jacklich. I think it's one thing to be aware of where we're limited skill-wise and that kind of clarity. Any ideas of how we can become more aware? Because I think that in the heat of battle, we're just kind of emotionally kind of wrapped up and all that stuff. As I remember Mr. Stowe, when I was working with that group of guys up in Napa for those 18 months, you know, I'd get frustrated, you know, and I'd get pissed off, and he'd come up to me and he'd go, Mr. Abel, every time you get pissed off like this, it's like your opponent gets to walk up to you, gets to cross around the net and walk up to you, and actually during the point, he can wave his hand in front of your face the whole time.
Right.
And so it's like you're trying to, you know, and he's right there in front of you. He's doing this, and he's just looking at you like, you know, you're kind of an idiot for getting pissed off because you're letting this guy do this thing. And I said, you're right. But I never really quite, you know, got the complete, all right, clarity on it. So I'm trying to talk here because I know this is not an easy answer. And there may not be an answer, but what I'm looking for is how can we practice getting that really minute clarity? How can we practice that? Can we do something on the court and off the court? Come on, Mr. Esoteric, give it up right now. This is the answer to life right here.
Well, let me open with this one then. That, you know, sometimes that obviously the more pressure that your opponent is putting on you, it's tougher to have clarity because you feel like you're behind the eight ball from the very beginning. right? And there's a a catchy little statement that says, when you're up to your ass in alligators, it's hard to remember that your job was to clean the swamp, right? So,
Absolutely, that's right.
So in those situations, more so than in a match where you're not being blown off the court, but there's time to actually make adjustments, we can have more clarity in those kinds of matches because you're not feeling like you're being overwhelmed or you're just being overtaken by pace or accuracy or a different style of play that's really throwing you off, right? So those situations, like you talked about the other day, in your match, that was, you played a big hitter. And, you kind of felt like you were scrambling to make the return back. And so, yeah, in a perfect world, the solution would have been, hey, can we take some pace off the return, make him dig in the dirt a little bit, big, tall guy, get him down low in the dirt, make him get some grass stains on his knees, and let's see if we can, create some different scenarios to work with, right? Well, that's all well and good when you get the dry erase board out and you make your plan. And then, oh my gosh, it's not, I can't even get to that point, right? To put a soft ball back in. And actually it brings me to, I mentioned it earlier, I was listening to Joe Rogan interview Mike Tyson. And one of the other things is one that Mike Tyson said was, everybody's got a great game plan until they get hit in the nose.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah, no, it's
and then
it's a classic, classic line.
Yeah, then all of a sudden it's a different story, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do about it, right? I think you have to have at least the clarity to keep trying something, to move on to another thing to try, especially let's just say return a serve to start with, right? Because that's where it can be frustrating, and the pressure in a match can mount very quickly if you're struggling to hold your serve. Let's say you're holding, but you're struggling every time to do it, and he's winning his serve at love and at 15, and literally he's serving for less than 2 minutes. And those games happen. They can happen a lot if the guy's really on his serve. And now he's handing the balls back to you to say, here, Brent, go ahead, your turn to serve again. And your service games are taking 5 to 7 minutes, right? That just starts to that's pressure, right? Because now he's like, shit, I don't want to be serving so fast, right? I don't want to be doing this.
Right.
So you got to keep trying to do something. Okay, I'm trying to soften and get to his feet, but I really can't get a good hold on the return. Okay, I'm trying to just chip it back. But now I'm floating it a little bit because the pace of the ball is coming in a little heavy. Okay, let's just start putting the ball up, lob off the return. And there's no shame in finding a solution. That's one of the probably biggest keys here, I think, in this talk is there's no shame in finding the right solution for today.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the questions you could ask yourself is, like, if you're not putting any pressure on the guy's service games, is either the guy's dinging aces all over the place, which this fella did a couple times, not a couple times, actually, frequently. I mean, it seems like I'd get him to 15-30 and boom, there goes an ace. And
right.
And so, but I think the question that we could ask ourselves is what can I give this guy that he might not want, where I allow him to touch the ball. And I think at the end of that match, what I got into was too much thinking, I really want to pressure this guy. And it was like, especially on the second serve. And he was serving a volley off his second serve. And I was taking it and thinking about more of just, I'd had a couple times where he had served and stayed back in the second serve, and I just played a chip and charge and came in and had some success. But now here he is, he's serving a volley on the second serve, and I'm trying to jam it up the line somewhere or jam it cross court.
Right.
And every time I did that and didn't win the point, I would think, well, I just got to do a little bit better. As opposed to, now wait a minute.
Right.
The question could be, what can I give him that maybe he doesn't want, where I allow him to touch the ball? And that's sort of like, it's a little counterintuitive. What does he not want where he can touch the ball? And just like you're saying, well, can you take the second serve and just not even knock it down? Just give him some slow and low down to his feet. Just try to figure out, well, where are his feet going to be when this ball, when your return lands over there, and try to get it somewhere in that area.
Right.
Just to kind of make some lousy geometry, to make it a little bit tougher, as opposed to trying to, I'm going to jam it by the guy. Uh-oh, I jammed it pretty well. I mean, I hit the ball pretty well, but the ball's up.
Yeah.
It's not down. It's up. It's got pace, and I'm still kind of stuck over here where I just returned serve from.
Right.
And now there's a wide open court, cross court. So that's just one example. And I think one of the things that we were talking about before we hit the recording is, you know, we've been talking about the practice court, and Craig O'Shan is the whole thing about the practice court being broken, hitting millions, maybe not millions, but hundreds of cross court groundies, which just don't really pay off because points almost don't get into that kind of situation where you guys are just exchanging cross court groundies, as opposed to work on your serve, high percentage of first serves in, work on your return. But here's a specific match play situation where why can't I today go out there and say to someone, hey, I'll tell you what, you know, I want to drill in this one thing. Is there something you want to work on? And the guy will say, yeah, I want to work on this thing. And I'll say, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the first 10 minutes and I'll feed you that thing. The next 10 minutes, what I want you to do is I want you to play some second serves and come in and serve and volley. And I want to really work on just feathering that return down to the guy's feet, which is more specific to kind of a match play situation, as opposed to generically, let's get the return to serve percentage up. Right. And so I think that we don't find in our own matches, well, what are specific situations in matches? What are common things that we run up against that we just don't ever drill? And there's so many things. I mean, there's so many things that, and I can't give you right now off the top of my head, I can't give you another example which would be common to someone else. Maybe there's something common for you, in the age group you play in and the level that you play at, that would be different than me, or different than my guys. But I'm just encourage everyone to do your post-match evaluation and get some clarity. And even if you do some practice sets, why not video them? Yeah. And start to look at it not from, don't do the standard stats, first serve percentage. Oh my gosh, well, I need to up that by 5%. No, come on, man. Let's look deeper than that, and let's see if you can't find some common match play situations that are happening where you know that you could do better. And I've had some guys, I went to the club yesterday and I've had a few guys come, hey, I really enjoyed that match in the final Sunday. And I kind of go, yeah, hey, well, that's, I appreciate that. And my response was, I can do better. And so in terms of I can do better is I've now got some clarity on one thing that I can do better at that might have turned that around. And so got to go out and find that guy today or tomorrow to hit me some serves, and I'll reciprocate and do whatever that he wants or she wants. Right. You got to.
I mean, I think that's that probably the biggest aspect of training and learning and improving your game is actually, having a partner that you can, as you say, hit me some serves, just hit me some backhand serves. I'm playing the deuce court this Friday night. And just hit me some serves from the doubles position and just hit me backhands. because I know I'm playing Bob, and I know he likes to just, this is where he doesn't matter who, doesn't matter if it's me or anybody, he loves to hit that serve there. Right. And just sit there and, and then work on, can I direct that ball back cross court to Bob and make him have to touch the first ball after the play? Because I get a little worried because there's a guy at the net. And, things start to, can I just get clarity here and just start knocking this ball down? Again, there's a difference between, knifing it down to the guy's feet, dipping it to the guy's feet, all the terminology we use. And then just as you said, you feather it. I tend to say, can I just dump it at the guy's feet? Meaning there's no pace really.
Right.
I'm going to let gravity do its job. And I want to give the guy kind of nothing, just a nothing ball that gets below the level of the net before he makes contact. That's all I'm looking to do. It doesn't have to be some beautiful little chippy, stylized thing. With whatever strokes you have, can you figure out a way to make that happen? And I think that's another aspect of this, is that I think sometimes players think they need a new stroke, or they need something, a new technique or something to handle that. And the reality is, no, you don't. It's just you've never experimented with that tool to use it differently than the way you've been taught to use it. So the idea behind, my forehand, this is the way you hit your forehand. Okay. but
that's in a lesson situation where Mr. Pro, or you're trying to make me look good.
Right.
Doesn't translate to the match.
Yeah. So last night, I was doing a clinic, actually not a clinic. It was more of a drill session, so I can have multiple levels out there on the court. And we were just working on a little pattern play, right? Drive 2 balls deep, cut the next one short. Well, the one student really didn't have a good idea on how to cut a ball. And then I said, okay, so let's use your volley technique to make that happen. And then it got better, because now, they understood. They had an idea in their head then. This wasn't like some big giant stroke. It was just, no, we're just going to try and dump the ball over the net somewhere between halfway to the service line and the net, right? Just in that little, right, driving back deep, dump it short. We don't care if they get to it, right? And so that all of a sudden that gave the player a better idea, like, okay, I don't have to reinvent. I don't need a new shot. I just going to use this other shot to produce this result. And then that even became frustrating, because they really didn't, their volley needs work, right? So then finally, as I'm watching them hit ground strokes, very, very clear off the backhand side. We happen to be on the working the backhand side first. And they're just knocking these 2 beautiful deep ground strokes. And so after a while, I just went, okay, come on up. Brought him up to the net and just fed him a few balls and said, okay, I put the basket out and I go, can you just use your backhand and hit the ball softly and hit it to the basket? And like literally almost hit the basket like 3 times in a row, just softly, and it was very clear what to do, right? I said, okay, that's the way I want you to hit this shot. You're going to drive him back deep, and then you're going to come shorter, come into the court a little bit. And now I just want you to use that, but let's just soften the hands a little bit, and I need you just to hit the ball there. And all of a sudden, the tension, everything relaxed, and it was like, there we go. So there's a solution, right? I don't ultimately, yes, to be able to cut the ball and have it check up and hold up in the court. That's the dream, right? If we want to call it that.
Right.
But it's not the only solution, because this player needs work on that other aspect to make this happen. But I just was looking for, can I find a way for this player to make it happen now?
Yeah.
And the answer was yes.
Yeah. So
I think that's where players they're blind to thinking that they need a new shot, a new stroke that they don't have to actually produce, and the ability to reach the different parts of the court, So yeah, you've got to feel like you've got to know that when you look into your toolbox, one tool has so many applications, and we can expand those applications if I start to soften up in how my rigidness about what that tool does.
Right.
So
right. Good.
And,
Good. Well, listen, guys, I hope what you got out of today's podcast episode is that become more aware of what's happening during your matches. And the place to start is a post-match kind of check-in. And it could be that, it could be by yourself, but sometimes it's almost better if you've got someone who actually watched you play. Because we all know that, sitting up on the deck, it's pretty easy to kind of see what was going on out there and not and not so much yourself. But start.
I'm gonna jump in there too and be cautious of not let it become a kitchen bitching session.
What does that mean?
Well, meaning, am I going to spend now time, kind of putting the they did this to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm a victim in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by that. Don't let your emotional state, your ego, prevent you from seeing the clarity of what actually happened in the match. It's just a tennis match. And so you can kind of see where you got into trouble and where we can actually maybe next time find a solution or something that at least you feel like you're actually, starting to take something away from them and inflict a little pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, yeah. And I think that's right. I mean, you've got to be able to figure out with a post-match analysis, well, what could I have done differently? And there's always something. You can't, I mean, again, like if the guy's hitting an ace every time, well, then let's get that guy in the tour because that's not true. He wasn't hitting an ace every time.
Right.
So,
apparently he's not a 3-5.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, the bottom line here is you got to figure out what could you do differently in specific common situations in your matches, and then that's part one. Part two is actually getting out there and finding someone to drill that situation, so that when you get up against it again the next time, you've now got clarity exactly of what it is that you're going to do. I mean, when I worked with Glenn Erickson, a little bit over a year ago for those, half a dozen sessions, Palm Springs Tennis Club, one of the things that he told me was that, and we were working on a forehand return to serve, he was saying, you got to be super clear. I mean, as soon as the serve gets out there, you have to have just crystal clear clarity of what it is you can't waffle. And the only way to have that clarity is to have some guy serve you that ball out there 30 times and then take a break and you give him 10 minutes and then he comes back and does it again. So guys, we'd love to hear from you. I think one of the things that would be great would be, in the comment section is to kind of leave a comment on a match play situation that you find yourself in over and over and over again. Or maybe there was one match, one specific thing that you went, after the match you went, man, I should have done that different. Right. And let us know, in the comment section, and then let us know, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
If you're just going to have this epiphany and then do nothing about it, then that's not good enough. So before we get to, Jeff, what we want to find folks to do right now, a quick reminder, which we didn't tee up at the beginning of this because we just jumped into the recording, was a free coaching call, 10-minute free coaching call with you, me, and Jeff. It's only 10 minutes, so you got to bring that one thing in your game, or maybe it's one specific match play situation that you find yourself in that you could do better, but you're not quite sure what to do about it. We'd love to help you on that free private 10-minute coaching call. The way to get onto that call, the way to schedule it is go over to goalballhunting.com, put in a first name, email address, click the button, and you'll get access to our online calendar scheduler where you can pick a date and time that works really well for you. So, Jeff, at this moment, what do we want to find folks to do right now?
We'd love you to like us, share us, please subscribe. Just like Brenny said, let us know what you think down below.
Guys, get out there today. Help someone else. Have a spectacular day. Jeff, we're going to do this again tomorrow.
I can't wait.